Welcome to the Connect with BMC Helix ITSM and Remedy webinar. During today's session, you'll be able to ask questions of our panelists. The questions, as well as the broadcast today, will be published to our YouTube channel and communities within a week of today's live broadcast. Today's topic is BMC Helix ITSM 20.08 feature release, and I'll turn it over to Peter Adams to start us on this content.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yes, I sure can. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, and welcome everybody from my side here to the BMC Helix ITSM 20.02 feature release webinar. As always, every 6 months we have this update about what capabilities we released in the latest feature release, and I'm joined here by the product management team for our ITSM space. We have lots of material today, lots of exciting things to share, so I want to get started right away. Quick look at the agenda. Again, it's the key part is really the new capabilities that we want to go through, including some live demos, but I do have a little bit of an overview at the beginning, just setting the context and sharing some news, and then some references and additional information at the tail end. But let's dive in right away about this. Before we get started on the 20.08 release, I just wanted to share some exciting news that BMC and specifically our Helix ITSM solution is the first PinkVERIFY ITIL 4 certified solution out there in the market. Not only does it show our commitment to ITIL in general and our leadership in that area, but also when you look at the new things that are coming in ITIL, the new practices that really reflect some of the new thinking in IT, it shows that we continue to lead the market around these kind of innovative new service management practices. Right now we are certified for 5 practices. That was the set of practices that was released by PinkVERIFY. But we do, as they expand the set of capabilities, we of course plan to expand our certification as well. But again, very exciting to be the first vendor in that area. So again, after this announcement, let's look specifically at the 20.08 release here. And again, this is a feature release, as we shared in the community, that is SaaS only. It reflects, in general, our new release cadence that we plan to make feature releases every 6 months. Every year there will be so every other release will be an on-premise and SaaS release, and in between every 6 months we'll have a SaaS only release. Of course, all the capabilities that we release as part of this SaaS only release will make it into the next on-premise release. And the reason why we adjusted our cadence here a little bit, and you see that in some of the other BMC products as well, is that we're really trying to optimize the value that we deliver to our customer base. Doing a release is always a certain overhead, and if you can optimize the release cadence, we are able to deliver more capabilities. And what we've heard from many customers on premise is that again, they don't usually adopt every 6 months. Some of you may do, but the average is certainly a lot longer. And so we felt like for on-premise, a yearly release cadence is sufficient. And then in this specific case, we had a patch 1 release that was actually delivering a number of capabilities of the 20.08 release to our on-premise customers, very specifically the flash-based, the replacement of the flash-based capability. I'll touch on that in a second, but I do want to call out again that this patch 1 and the latest patch 2 that we just released yesterday basically address some of these flash replacement capabilities, and that's really the target that should be relevant for most on the on-premise customers. These patch releases, by the way, are platform specific releases. So for the apps, again, there's no corresponding patch. It's a platform only patch release for on-premise. But again, that reflects our cadence, and again, the goal is ultimately to deliver optimal value to our customers. And that's why we've made this adjustments around our release cadence. So before we talk about some of the new capabilities, I just wanted to touch quickly on the topic of flash replacement. Again, we deliver this for our SaaS customers with this 20.08 release, and then for on-premise customers with the patch 1 and patch 2. Of course, if you haven't really rolled out patch 1 yet, we recommend that you go directly to patch 2, which is a superset, right? What we're doing here is basically addressing the remaining capabilities that were flash-based in our stack, whether it's the platform, the CMDB, ITSM applications, SRM approvals, etc. We're replacing, with these latest releases, the remaining capabilities of Flash. We had worked on this for quite a while, but again, in this, with these releases, we are releasing the remaining capabilities. There are a few exceptions, as you see here on the bottom, areas where we decided to basically, deprecate the corresponding capability with the latest release. That refers to the mid-tier agent-to-agent chat and to SMTM, specifically around the ITSM solution. And as we've documented, there are replacement suggestions for these capabilities, but we just felt these weren't used heavily. In some cases, we hadn't updated them anyway for quite a while, so we decided to deprecate these capabilities. Let me quickly touch on how this looks like when you move either, again, as an on-premise customer to 20.02 patch 1 or patch 2, or to 20.08 as part of a SaaS customer. So again, when it comes to SRM, this replacement of the flash-based process editing capability, which is the screenshot you see here, is ultimately delivered by this platform replacement, and very specifically, it is delivered as part of the mid-tier component. So as soon as you upgrade the corresponding mid-tier, either again as part of the overall platform upgrade or specifically just the mid-tier, you'll see a new process editor being used, at least from a visual perspective. The canvas part again is basically a new visual library. The structure overall of the SRM process modeling and process management continues to be the same. So by and large, this will work very similar to before. It's just that the way exactly how you drag and drop these icons on the screen and how you connect them is changing a little bit, and we have more information, more references, how exactly that looks like later on. Again, no work needed to modify the processes; they all continue to work. The overall, how you invoke it, etc. Everything is the same. It's just the visual editor piece is basically working in a slightly different way. So let me jump on to the next screen here. The other big part, aside from SRM, was obviously the CMDB replacement of the remaining capabilities, and this was mostly in three areas. One is around the dynamic service modeling. We had, of course, again, a CI Explorer and an option to create service models before in the new CMDB UI, but we added a few new capabilities around this idea of dynamic service modeling, right? Where you don't explicitly or manually draw the connections, but define it dynamically through rules. The second part is we made updates to the class manager. Again, class manager itself was already available in earlier versions, but we have added a few remaining capabilities here that were missing, specifically around CI audits, for example, or around creating federated classes or federated plugins. And then last but not least, we made some extensions around the reconciliation functionality, where certain activities like execute, copy, etc. were not supported in earlier versions. So again, basically closing out some of the capabilities that were not fully supported in earlier versions. I mentioned before that there is lots of material available about how exactly this flash replacement looks like and works. And I've added 2 resources here. Number one is a pointer to there was a Connect with BMC Helix ITSM and a Remedy webinar specifically about this topic of flash deprecation. And I want to call that out. It's posted in the community. That webinar had happened in July, and the recording is posted in the community. So in that recording, you will see in more detail exactly how this looks like, including live demos, etc. And then secondly, and that's the screenshot you see here on the slide, there is extensive documentation in the 20.02 doc space, where you can see, in different tabs here for ITSM, SRM, CMDB, ERA system, what the different capabilities are that we have replaced. How do they look like? There's videos in there, as you can see. So there's a lot of information exactly how that replacement looks like. Again, you can go to the ITSM 20.02 doc space, search for replacing Adobe, and you'll see based on your specific starting versions where you are today, whether it's 9.104 or 18.08 or any of the versions, and then comparing to 20.02, what things are changing from a flash perspective. You'll see that listed, and again, including certain videos and examples how exactly that looks like. So again, I just wanted to quickly recap what the situation is around Flash. Again, either available to you as part of 20.02 patch 1 or patch 2 on premise, or as part of 20.08 from a SaaS perspective. And for the SaaS customers, we of course continue as in the past work with you on timing the corresponding upgrade work here. Okay, with that said, let me focus a little bit on some of the new capabilities, and we'll divide that up into multiple sections here. I'll start out talking a little bit about the ITSM app-specific enhancements before John will dive deeper into a very exciting new initiative that we have launched around our UI technology. So John will talk more about it, and we'll have Pradeep talking about integrations mostly, and then Rahul at the end covering a platform and smart reporting and RSSO. This is roughly the order by which we go. So let's look at the details here. Again, aside from the new UI technology that we're introducing here with Progressive Web, which John will present here, we've made a number of enhancements around our ITSM UI, one of which is the needs attention flag here. So this was something that we heard for a while from our customer base, that there should be a better way to see in the ticket console, but as well on individual ticket screens, whether something was updated about the ticket. So if you're a user, you look at an IT agent, you look at the tickets in the console, you want to know whether somebody else had correspondingly added a comment, etc. And you can do so, through this needs attention flag that is now available in the system here. So again, if somebody else, whether it's the customer or some other user, had added a comment or made other types of changes, you'll see the corresponding ticket flagged and highlighted in the corresponding console, so that you can focus very quickly on these other tickets that had been updated, and I want to drill deeper into understanding what update was made. So again, a productivity improvement in that you don't have to dig into all the tickets. You basically have a pointer which ones were updated. The second new capability I want to talk about is the ability to submit DWP catalog requests in Smart IT. If you recall, we had supported this for SRM requests, so for SRM catalog requests, for quite a while, almost from the start of Smart IT. We're able to, in Smart Recorder, to basically select a catalog item from SRM and then submit a corresponding service request in the system here. Now, this is now as well supported for catalog items that only exist in the DWP catalog. The flow overall is very similar. Again, you're typing in smart recorder what the ask is of the user. And on the right side, you see the corresponding proposals, which catalog items fit to it, and then you can submit the corresponding requests once you've selected and say submit request, that you can fill out the corresponding form. One thing that we're very excited about here is that we're changing a little bit this, or have changed the strategy how to do it. Unlike with SRM, where we have basically programmed our own interaction, here we're pretty much rendering the same request submittal screen that also the end users are using when they go directly to DWP. And the benefit here is that if we're embedding that as a widget, basically all the functional capabilities that DWP support are supported here as well when you submit it through Smart IT. And any future capability that is built kind of automatically makes it in here. So we're always in sync with the capabilities that DWP has in terms of submitting the corresponding service requests, right? So functionally, again, very equivalent basically between what DWP offers, and unlike with the SRM approach here, there's no difference between what you do as in the end user UI versus what you do in Smart IT. Right? The next capability we want to talk about is live chat improvement. Live chat, again, very exciting capability that is more and more adopted by our customer base, often augmenting the chatbot capability that we have. So as you talk or enable end users to get help with the chatbot, this option of switching over into a live chat interaction with a real service desk agent is something that's often seen as critical for the success of a chatbot initiative, right? And as you know, we've built out the UI capabilities quite a bit around live chat. The system itself had been around for a while, but now we've have exciting new capabilities around the UI here to really make service desk agents highly efficient as they are responding to multiple of these chats, right? So in the latest 20.08 release, we added a number of new capabilities. One is a monitoring console, and it's really a key feature here in that you can monitor what's going on around these live chat sessions as an administrator or supervisor. You can see how long customers are waiting, how long agents spend in the chat, etc. So basically statistics that tell you what's going on in general in terms of live chat support option. Right? We also have now integrated our client management solution into this live chat environment, so that you can, as part of a live chat session, basically you're able to launch a corresponding remote control session for the desktop of the user. So again, many issues that come into the service desk are desktop related. And so from that perspective, you're able to seamlessly switch over into a remote control or remote support scenario from your live chat session. Right? And last but not least, we made some improvements around auto assignment of tickets in context of such live chat interaction. Right? So again, very exciting new capabilities that we have. Another change that we did, which is super helpful and will help increase automation, which is a topic, of course, we continue to work on quite a bit from an ITSM perspective, is a new capability to tie task templates and task group templates to incident templates. We've had this capability for work order templates and change templates for a while, because again, in those areas, standard flows have been quite common practice. whether it's standard work orders or standard changes. In the incident area, though, we did not have this because we always considered incidents being a bit more manual, a bit more one-off, so to speak. But there are many scenarios where automation and a predefined flow of tasks is actually helpful in the incident management space as well. So from that perspective, we do think it's valuable, and we have added now the option to have predefined tasks come with a template, an incident template, and so from that perspective, you can almost define a run book, whether it's from a security incident perspective or whether it's from a standard incident perspective. You can predefine certain tasks that come with your template, and those can, of course, be automated. And from that perspective, you have a kind of a predefined run book or playbook of activities, as part of a specific incident scenario. Right? So very exciting that, again, we are pushing the limits here around automation. And the last topic I wanted to discuss is, again, there's a few additional things which we enhanced around the ITSM apps and Smart IT. And these are minor items, but for example, because we see more adoption around live chat, we added chat as a reported source so that it can distinguish where incidents come from. There's some enhancements around logging. So again, this is part of the standard refinement of our capabilities, both at the ITSM as part of the Smart IT area. So quite a few new capabilities, but the most exciting one is really our new UI technology, and I wanted to hand over for that to my colleague John Hall here. So John,
yeah, hello.
Go ahead.
Hopefully you can hear me good. Okay, so I usually start talking about this section by thinking about where we got to Smart IT, why we got to Smart IT, and what we've done since the initiation of that initiative. So back in 2014, we felt we could really push expectations forward when it came to the interface of ITSM systems, and I think with Smart IT, we did that well. We introduced pioneering new features like Smart Recorder, which enables service desk agents to log tickets with a very powerful interface that doesn't involve them clicking all around a bunch of boxes, but just enables them to enter the user's input to them in one form, in one field, and have a lot of the work done for them in terms of searching for related resources and populating that ticket. So it's been a very successful initiative in itself. However, with the technology we had in 2014, when we first started building that, we kind of ended up making some compromises. And the key compromise was that we weren't able to deliver that snappy user experience with all the customizability that we have in mid-tier. In fact, at the time, we talked about how mid-tier was doing so much in the browser that it was kind of limited in terms of what we could achieve in user experience terms. Our strategy from there was to effectively create new configurability in Smart IT over the releases. But actually, one of the things that has changed since then, in around 2018, the major browsers all began to accept and support the Progressive Web Application Standard, which was defined in 2017, pretty much set out, and probably with some work done before then, but that was really the inception date. And it left us in an interesting position. It's almost as if we could say, if we started today, of course we'd use that, because what that gives us, Progressive Web App Technology, is a couple of major advantages. Firstly, we can make this interface still look like Smart IT with that high standard of UX, but we can do that through mid-tier, because what we're able to do now is use this technology to render forms via mid-tier, which are of that standard and look and feel of Smart IT, whereas previously Smart IT was kind of an application in its own right, built primarily with Angular. So that's really good, because now we have a bunch of advantages that we didn't have before with Smart IT. Firstly, it's got all that customizability and extensibility that you're used to seeing with mid-tier, but not looking like mid-tier, looking like Smart IT. Secondly, it can be adaptive and responsive in the way the screen is laid out. and that's one of the key elements of the Progressive Web App Standard, is that you can deliver a single page, a single web page design, which can dynamically scale between mobile and desktop and back in terms of the layout, look and feel. So if you're running it on a laptop or a PC or a tablet with that landscape view, the screen can appear in one layout. If you then run the same form on a mobile device with the same definition, you can scale it appropriately to the much more portrait-oriented, smaller structure of a typical mobile screen. So there's another big advantage, because it means that we can deliver mobile applications much more easily. You can run mobile Smart IT in your browser on the mobile, or we can deliver which we may do in future, deliver a lightweight mobile app to optimize things like barcoding, but keep it on a single version, because it doesn't have to be packed with its own take on Smart IT. It can just run the web content within the application, look and feel like a really good mobile app, but importantly, it can be distributed through the app stores because it's a single version to cover all versions of the underlying application. So that's really good. The other really good bit of news, as I say, this is delivered through mid-tier, which means it's developed through Developer Studio. And for those of you who do your own development on the AR system platform, now whether that's to tailor, extend, customize the out-of-the-box applications, or to build new applications or extensions to applications, new forms and workflow, that this will give you the ability now to use Developer Studio to develop this kind of form layout. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you this in the system in a moment. What I'd just quickly like to do is just talk about what I've just described in some technical visualizations, some high-level visualizations. So the 2015 Smart IT version 1.0 and versions since, that was built on this kind of structure, where on the left-hand side there you see the traditional Remedy AR system and application stack. So you have the core server in the server tier, which of course is talking to and from a relational database, and then that is dynamically providing the kind of the form definitions and data for which are rendered in the web tier and then consumed by the client's browser. Smart IT, excellent though it was another thing apart, and that meant that we had to have a separate web application to deliver Smart IT forms. There was a small database to handle some of the local configurations and metadata for Smart IT, and that was being fed directly from what we call providers from the AR system server. So effectively, the summary here is that Smart IT was separate to mid-tier, and that relied on things like cross-launching if you wanted to shift from one to the other. Where we currently are with 20.08 is that we've delivered the incident and work order forms in this release, as you'll see shortly on progressive views. So now those things are being fed by mid-tier, and then the Smart IT server still exists. But where we are going over the next few releases is to shift away from that, and the aim is to then not rely on this Smart IT server and deliver everything through mid-tier as progressive web applications. So it's pretty exciting what's coming. As a result, we can also, as we go with this, because we're rendering content in a more dynamic way, we've thought about some of the UX interactions, and as you see here, things like tasks, they're not delivered on kind of individual cards in the view. They're delivered in a tabular format, and one of the benefits of that is it means you've got access to customize and tailor that through Dev Studio if you want. And there's other examples here of some of the things we've been changing there. So it enabled us actually to make some quite tactical enhancements to the usability of the tool at the same time. Okay, the final slide in this section, before I show you a bit of a demo, is just talking about this developer experience. So as we say, this enables you to now use Developer Studio again for Smart IT, just as you may have done in the past for mid-tier. So as I say, for extensions, you've got that developer. You've got, if you want to build new forms to link up to ITSM, for example. Those of you who are familiar with ITSM and Remedy may be familiar with the development structures, the forms, the client-side workflow, active links in particular, the server-side workflow like filters and escalations. That's all available to you, and effectively, Smart IT now runs active links, which is a very common question that we have. But it also enables you to build a form once that can be used on desktop and mobile. I would encourage you to take a look at the documentation, which talks about some of the clever things like panel holders and things that are part of this structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step into a bit of a demonstration now by sharing my screen, and we'll show you some of these things in reality. Okay, so just one moment, I will launch the screen sharing. So as I say, this is in the documentation for 20.08, and for those of you who've done development in the past, it's worth taking a look, because and now I'll show you these things on an actual server in a moment. But in addition to the kind of familiar objects that you might know, the forms and active links and things, we have these new structures called panels, which are designed to support that very self-adapting layout of the screen. So take a look at this if you're interested. It's a nicely written section. It enables you to build these structures, which, as you see here, will look one way on a desktop, and they will reformat automatically if the screen size is mobile size. And there's a nice thing you can do when you got the kind of the raw forms here, where you can actually just do this in a browser, resize the browser, and it all flips back into place. So it's some nice resources for the developer to take a look through there in the ITSM, sorry, in the Remedy 20.08 documentation. But let's actually this. Here we are in 20 environment. By the way, some of the features that you might have seen Peter talk about a moment ago, like the needs attention flag, should be there. Hang on, it's always there. Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I might have to use a different machine. In the meantime, let me take a look at the. Let me just show you this in the Developer Studio. So for those of you who've been Developer Studio here, and I'm going to open up the work order form, and we're going to take a look at one of these forms. For those of you who are not familiar with this, what we're looking at is the actual the mid-tier the mid-tier development interface of old, which enables us to actually build forms and connect up those forms and make them do things. So this is essentially the what both BMC's internal application developers and also customers would have seen for whenever they built forms. So this, for example, is the definition of the work order form and how it's all laid out. And on this screen, it's zoomed out a little bit, but so let's come in a little and make this a little bigger for you. Okay. Now, one of the things that these have is views. So if you're familiar with views, we can actually, one of the things you'll see as I step through the views is we probably see obviously the different languages. So there's German. So this is one way that forms have been localized. Anyway, none of that's important right now. It just sets a bit of context. What we do have over here is these ones down in the bottom right corner: SB Create, SB Edit, SB View, and these are Smart IT version. So at the moment, it's not 100% WYSIWYG. Something we might do down the line, but but what we do see now here, you notice there's these colored boxes around here. These are those panels I suggested you take a look at in the documentation. And what I just wanted to illustrate was now, I can actually edit these forms. I can change the features and functions on a Smart IT form. I can do things like I can highlight one of the buttons, and actually, again, this is something that developers will be familiar with. I highlight this. You see this attribute active links. Active links are the core client-side workflow. In other words, running in the browser, code that runs in the browser on Remedy. That's not been a feature of Smart IT up till now. We effectively coded that within the Smart IT application. Now I've actually got access to edit and adjust and change the workflow. So one of the biggest asks from customers who do some of their own development has been, when will Smart IT support active links? And as you can see, for these forms now, the answer is right now. So the edit views, the create views are all there in the Dev Studio.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Greg. So I'm really excited to announce
a brand new integration platform that BMC is delivering for ITSM integrations. This is a powerful iPaaS platform. It's a real mature platform. BMC has partnered with a Gartner MQ leader company known as Jirabit. We are OEMing that service, and we are enriching that platform for our own product-centric integrations. So this is, as I mentioned, this is one of a complete iPaaS platform. So it provides solutions for beyond the IT domain, beyond our domain, but we're excited that it has so much more content for our domain as well. And what we're doing in this approach is we're investing. BMC has a team of developers that are building. So for most common BMC-centric integrations, right, for your customer needs, integration needs, we're aspiring to offer you pre-built solutions. So you will see us, there are a lot of connectors already available with the platform today, right? So this platform has specific generic dedicated connector for applications, many of the common applications that you need. We're investing as in, for most common needs from our customers. We're adding more and more connectors for our common use cases. So, for example, we have recently launched a connector for Microsoft SCCM. That is a BMC exclusive connector. We have launched a lot of pre-built templates, right? So where we are putting two connectors together in terms of a solution for a use case. And this, so in this approach, Jirabit as a corporation is investing in the platform. We have thousands of customers already on this platform jointly with Jirabit. It is a Gartner MQ leader. So if you look at 2020 rankings from Gartner and last 5 years, they have been in the MQ. They have been the top right hand position along with the top 4 or 5 iPaaS vendors in terms of 2022 Gartner critical capabilities for B2B integrations. Those for those integrations, they are the number one vendor, and so there is solutions available for Workday. There is solutions available for pretty much any application you name it. If you go to our documentation on BMC Helix integration platform, you can get a complete list of all the connectors as well as endpoints, and you will see hundreds of endpoints listed. So the way it works here with this API-based integration platform is that it allows you to have quick integration done using the generic technology-based connectors. So what I mean by that is you have an HTTP connector, you have a SOAP connector, you have an FTP connector, so DB connector, right? So any integration use case, as long as you're dealing with a modern application, you do not have to write a connector from scratch, as may be the case with many other integration solutions, right? So here you have these generic connectors that you can point and click and configure, right? So the HTTP connector is one of the ones that is most commonly used by many of the customers today, and most applications now have REST API. So with a simple couple of clicks, you can start to build your integration use case. So this is really powerful, exciting stuff. We have published, again, a lot of content as BMC is building it out on top of the platform. So a lot of pre-built integration templates, for example. Let me see if I can move on to the next one. Yeah. So some of these examples of the pre-built integration templates include syncing, incident sync with ServiceNow and ITSM. That's a common need we hear from many of our customers who are using multiple service desk systems. We have built another template for digital workplace request, create a Jira issue from digital workplace request and allow collaboration on those tools, on those two records. You will have visibility of Jira issue on digital workplace, as the issue number on digital workplace request. You will see the comment from Jira come into the request. So that's all pre-built. So again, the platform has a lot of power for you to build your own integrations, but we also are building for most common use cases that many across our customer base. Another example of a template is Workday, right? If you in business workflows, if you want to view information from Workday, or if you want to update information in Workday, specifically employee information, right? So one of the use cases that we have heard is that this employee address update, right? Like that has tax implications, right? The moment you update, maybe you move out of state, and then the payroll needs to adjust and make sure that they pay proper taxes. So that information is maintained in Workday. Now, many companies have a process around it. So what you do is if employees want to change that address, they need to log a ticket in business workflow, a case that, hey, I'm moving, this is my new address. So agents, as they come in and look at that point in time with this integration, on the same screen, they see what is the address defined for this employee in Workday, or you can pull in leave balance information, what's the vacation balance, or anything like that, compensation in case, and some, variable compensation use cases, that, there is always some sort of a clarification needed on your variable compensation. So there are agents who are handling those cases. So here you have that information pulled to you in real time on the same screen, and the agents in business workflows can take an action on that information and send it over. Similarly, this platform is, and again, API-based platform. So anything you build in this platform, right? So what I mean is, suppose you take a connector together, right? You take SCCM, Microsoft SCCM connector. By the way, that Microsoft has renamed that product. Now they call it Microsoft Endpoint Config Manager. I'm still calling it SCCM because for me that's SCCM for a number of years. But that connector, if you look at that connector and say you build an integration template, which we are shipping, actually one out of the box is about retrieving asset details using SCCM, right? So once you build that, so for example, you will have a query activity, then you'll have SCCM connector mapping, that kind of a flow. You can expose that as an API, and then you can call that from anywhere. In our case, you can call it from digital workplace, you can call it from Smart IT. So that's the power of the API-based platform, that you build it once, expose it as a REST API, and then you have the power to plug it into many different transactional workflows. The final point I like to make is this platform also takes care of your foundation data sync type of use cases, right? So if you have, this is again a common use case I'm showing at the bottom of the slide, is syncing Salesforce users to ITSM people records, right? So this is a common need. Some of you may be doing this through AD or Microsoft AD, or you may have a sort of a customer master system, master data system, but many of you are also doing sync from your let's say Salesforce is your system where you're getting new users, employees added. You may want to sync that back to your ITSM, so you have all of the users defined in the system. So with this pre-built integration template, you can literally have this thing going in real time, or you can migrate the whole user record from Salesforce into ITSM in one time. So obviously, at the cutover, if you want to bring everything in, you can do that. Or from there on, if you want to do a real-time sync on a daily basis, you can use a sync integration template. So In addition to that, we continue to invest in our current pre-built integrations, right? If you're familiar with the MCSM use case, right? We have super sophisticated Jira integrations. I know many of you are using it today, love it, and it's been phenomenal for personally for me. I built this one from scratch, and so we have enhanced that to add a new use case. So where now you can create a known error record from an issue in Jira, and it's pre-built, it's out of the box. You have that same flexibility of mapping or overriding the mapping using your custom attribute. All of that is available to you. I'm going to get into a demo quickly, so let me get through the slides. Another new capability here is, creating a case in remedy force from an incident in ITSM. So that's something that got that released in 2008 release. So I'm super excited for that. And one more along the same lines is, taking an incident out of ITSM and creating in Jira Service Desk. So that's also possible. Again, when we do these out of the box flows, we offer attribute sync, right? If they're important attributes, they change on one end, we sync it on the other side. We allow collaboration. So if there is a comment or work note recorded at one end, we take it over to the other side. We allow for a status sync or visibility of those ticket records. For example, in this case, Jira Service Desk ticket information on Smart IT, we display that. We show it to you, to the agent, so that they can have a real-time view of the information in the other system. So that's our effort to differentiate and in terms of not just migrating data synchronization from one end to the other end. We think about this as a user, as a persona, and what information is relevant for that persona to be able to get the job done, right? So in this case, a service desk, a company that has multiple service desk systems, let's say Jira Service Desk, a departmental application, service desk application, and Helix ITSM, enterprise-wide ITSM deployed, and they have those tickets come into ITSM and have our service desk agent have the complete view, real-time view in the UI. They have that information through the same activity stream. They have the ability to collaborate and say, send it to Jira Service Desk. So that's our approach, and many of you have shown tremendous excitement to it. This is one of the fastest growing products. So I'm super excited for this one. Let me jump into a quick demo for two pre-built integrations that I have that the team has built using Helix Integration Platform. So what I'm going to do in here, I have a recorded feature video that I'm going to show. This one is many of our customers have now need Slack integration, right? So they want to show, publish some of the important critical events to Slack channel. For example, you have quarter end activities, right? And there's a tiger team of folks from the support business come together for that quarter end close, and they are not everyone in there is kind of in the system in ITSM monitoring incidents, right? So you may want to see this tiger team may want to see critical incidents coming into the system, maybe published to the Slack channel, right? Your corresponding ops Slack channel, Q4N Slack channel. So you have people are, obviously you understand this, how critical that is with respect to your financial deadlines and quarter end and business close, right? So with this pre-built integration template, right, that we have shipped, you can see that, as an incident is created in ITSM, right? So right now I'm creating an incident. So this is reported by Alan, unable to book an opportunity in Salesforce, Q4 close. That's the situation. They're having a difficulty in Salesforce application. what we have done is with the backend integration as the incident, because I've configured this to watch for critical incidents created or a high urgency incident as they are created, take it from here, publish onto Slack. And obviously it's completely configurable, as you will see. So what has happened, you've got a key attribute of the incident published to the Slack channel. What's the next thing happened, that the incident got assigned to Bob, so we published again to Slack that, hey, Bob is assigned to the incident. Now look at the demo. We'll then quickly look at the back end of this template, how it's done. Now what I'm doing is recording a comment for this. So the agent Bob is recording a comment asking for a question. Now that question, the comment gets published because it was a public comment. It gets published to the Slack channel as well. So again, this is completely configurable with respect to what attributes do you want to display, what criteria do you want to apply to incident, which incidents to choose to publish, and then basically for the template, the mapping that you want to do, that pre-built mapping, you can modify the mapping if you want, and we make all the attributes available to you out of the box, and you can choose to display what you want to display. So I'm not gonna quickly go through this one at a very high level. The intent here is not to build it, but just show you the power of the platform. And my goal is to show you the reusability of this approach that you build. For example, in this template, we build a webhook approach of publishing data from ITSM. Then you can reuse that piece of the integration for any integration that you build using webhooks with ITSM. So let's look at that. This has two parts. On the right side, you will see a whole bunch of connectors, obviously. On the left side, this is the template that we have built. There is a part about ITSM to Slack publishing, and then there is a part about this comment publishing. So this is the pre-built template that we are shipping. Obviously, we are using ITSM connector. It shows you the query that we are making. Again, drag and drop, use the connector, choose the attribute, use drag and drop to map. That's the approach. And then you have a Slack connector that we have pulled in from the right side. Again, these are the attribute mapping coming into Slack, how we're mapping data coming in from ITSM into Slack. And literally, I'm showing you the set of data elements that have come in and how we map it to the Slack API. If you see, basically each functional activity you can block, put it together, and you can reuse across the integration templates that you build. Now, the first part, that the webhook part that I was showing, is the enable integration. That is that part. The third part is we have designed it to be a project variable driven integration template. So what that means is if you want to just configure it, right, you do not need to go and open up that workflow to make changes. So if you have to specify your channel, Slack channel name, you can do that. If you have to configure the template for your own user account, password, integration user account, all of that can be done just by visiting the project variable in the screen, updating that data element, and you are good to go. So that's the type of approach in the pre-built integrations that we are shipping, that we have taken, and it's completely point and click, right? By the way, the platform is available to you for any scripting base. If you do want to build advanced, complex integrations, you do have the power in the platform. So with that, let me do a quick one. I wouldn't go through this other one that we built for Microsoft SCCM. So this one is a little bit different. It's using SCCM connector. And again, I have an incident come in which someone is reporting slow performance on my machine. Agent is looking at that incident in real time. What they want to do is they want to pull information from SCCM, right? That what's running on the customer's device, right? Real time, you want to pull the signatures, the hardware profile, everything else. So they can, here I have linked this SCCM template from as an action on Smart IT, right? So I'm drilling down on Smart IT. I have this custom action, which is get asset details from SCCM. At this point, it is calling that integration template that I built, and it is basically pulling the information. Right now, I mapped these 4 or 5 attributes, and for this record, that's the information I have. But that's simply if you want to map more attributes, those are available in the template. You can use it. So that's the approach we have taken. For the last part, again, this is the template here. And in this case, this is a pull into ITSM, right? So I wanted to showcase that part, that how you have exposed this template, which was built using SCCM connector, and you have complete configurability through project variables. So that's really the part that I wanted to show. I can hand it back over to Rahul. Thanks, everyone. Rahul, I hear you.
Maybe while we're waiting, this is John. I should be able to just quickly show those progressive web screens now. So maybe if I jump in and do that.
Go ahead, John.
Let's get that done, and then we can. So I'll just take it about 5 minutes to show you what I wasn't able to show you a minute ago. Sorry, the screen sharing is a little fiddly here, but we'll get back on. So what I was about to show you, unfortunately, the environment for some reason came down in the 10 minutes since the start of the meeting. So I'll look into that, and apologies for that, for the disruption to the flow. But we talked, didn't we, about and once again on that ticket console, you'll see that new needs attention flag column. Are you seeing my screen okay here, folks?
Yes, John.
Excellent. But when I open up an instance, one of the things you'll see, and that is instance and work orders, is the interaction looks a little different. The screens are fundamental. Now this is actually the progressive views form. So bear in mind, this is being rendered directly from mid-tier using standard form definitions, using those new components I talked about, and running things like active links. So what that means is you might notice there's a slight difference to what you're used to in Smart IT on things like the update feed. It still works the same way. I can still tag users. I can still make updates to, that stream. But they appear in a slightly more tabular format now, and that enables a lot of customization, a lot of changes to be made to that. Secondly, when we do things like adding tasks, so let's add a task to the incident. I'm just going to. This is a demonstration task. I'll add one from scratch here. Again, what you'll see is the format looks a little different here. We have this tabular structure. So again, it's not quite the same as the square cards as before, but it's actually a little neater when it comes to customization, and everything kind of works, integrated between the new type of form and the old. So that's pretty good, I think. I'm not going to. One thing we'll also, I'll look at publish and demonstration videos rather than obviously because we've got a little out of sequence. I'd like to just briefly talk on the fact that with Smart Recorder now we can create a ticket, and this is one of the other items that Peter mentioned. We can submit digital workplace tickets directly from here, even from the new catalog item. So when I have something like a VPN issue, for example, what we would do if I had the environment that was working was we'd be able to come in and actually see those catalog items, and it would show the digital workplace interface as it is in DWP rather than any kind of representation of it. So that means you've got full flexibility to use all types of digital workplace catalog. That's what I wanted to just quickly show. And with that, we'll hand over to the next part of the demo. So Rahul, are you there? You didn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear before. Excellent, brilliant.
Okay. So in this next part, we will quickly cover some of the updates to platform components, namely AR platform, smart reporting, and Remedy SSO. So some of the highlights of this release was one change we did for email service, where we have added support for OAuth-based authentication for EWS specifically in the ITSM email engine. So this is, the EWS, particularly the EWS protocol that can now be connected using the OAuth. We are not supporting the other protocols for using OAuth, but that we are something evaluating for the future. So where it helps customers is largely for their Office 365 integration, because Microsoft has announced that they will only support some of the advanced modern authentication and will retire uh, support for basic authentication. So that's where having this new OAuth-based authentication for EWS will help the customers. The great part of this feature is this is also part of the patch 1, patch 2 that you have, so that even if you're running it on and you want to take advantage of this feature, you can do that now. The other one is ability to change RL listing. So little background to this one is to address all the performance issues coming from RLS or row level security enablement on the forms. We added a new algorithm in the previous release. That new subquery algorithm essentially facilitates getting those search results faster. What we have done in 20.08 release is you can use the AR RLS command on the RLS enabled form to automatically set the RLS algorithm to subquery. So that's the one. And then for Postgres, we have another update is it now supports case insensitive configuration. As you guys might remember, for 2002, we started with the Postgres journey, and then we had the case sensitive as the only configuration available. We are quickly expanding it for other type as well. Smart reporting also has a bunch of changes coming in, primarily coming through the patch that we have from the OEM. One is around the calculated field design. So probably some of you might have experienced this when you're designing a calculated field, and if you have some large amount of data, then during the design of this field, it actually does some validation to identify the field type, and during that process, it will kind of scan the entire incident help desk form that results into performance issues, and you have some challenges designing that calculated field. So with this release, that algorithm is changed whereby you can actually, instead of in the system trying to find out the field type, you could define it upfront so that system will skip that logic and you can design some of those calculated fields. So there are a couple of UIs where you can design the calculated field or freehand SQL, and this will be taken care in those multiple UIs. And then on the smart reporting, one kind of supportability issue that we've seen with customers is many times users do not get a understanding of whether a broadcast was actually executed or not unless you go in the back end and look at the logs. What we have done is we have kind of provided a UI whereby you can see the execution history of this broadcast, so that you admins or some other privileged users can see that right from the UI without requiring logs or BMC support to identify which broadcasts were successful, which broadcasts failed in the process. Other few announcements of smart reporting. Again, this is a little back-end work where there are some particular issues by which the smart reporting was losing connection or was not able to reconnect to the AR server, and that was resulting into you're not able to fetch the data, run the report, or sometimes some of the metadata operation that might be happening at the same time could impact that metadata operation, transfer operation. So we have got some fixes for it by which we can manage that situation much better with the 20.02 patch 1 or 20.08 release in the SaaS. And then there is a small feature which kind of addresses a challenge when you're sending a bunch of broadcasts, right? So, for example, we had some of the customer situation they're sending far big report pretty routinely, and that used to kind of choke what kind of processing was happening in the backend. Because let's say if you have a broadcast is sending the email on via sending the reports via email, and then you have, let's say, 10 recipients for the broadcast. It was kind of generating the report 10 times and sending it individually. Now there is some optimization available by which instead of generating the report 10 times and sending it as 10 different emails, there can be a CC option where one copy of the report is generated and copied to 10 different people. So that's another optimization that's available with smart reporting. Talking about SSO, again, as for most of the SSO enhancement, all of those are admin centric or in the backend enhancement. The first one is previously for admin accounts. If you're using the local admin account in RSSO, local user management, then there was no password complexity requirement, but we have imposed some presets for this password complexity in terms of the characters or the combination of numeric and special characters required. The second item on the security standpoint is the additional algorithm primarily used for signing the request or signing the metadata for SAML authentication. So SHA-256 is another option available for customers. And then the third one is around the login transformation. So if customers had requirement for changing the logins, incoming from other system to something different in RSSO, then there was a way to do it in the past as well, but that generated, you have to generate files and then you have to place it in the server. So there was some kind of operations or DevOps overhead, but we have done in this release is added a UI where expression builder can be used for creating that transformation in the Remedios admin UI itself. A few more things on RSSO. In the past release, we added support for logging of admin activities, where if there are any admin activities happening on the admin console, those are registered in the registered as different events in the system. We have extended the same for user events as well. So, for example, events around authentication, session expiry, unsuccessful logins, login, logout, all of those will be added as different audit entries. And there is an easy way to kind of quickly get to some of those audit details if you want to. Again, similarly, we have changed some of the configuration. So previously there was a 30-day retention for this audit thing. Now we have made it configurable as well as changed the default to 120 days. And other two minor things are, there's OpenID Connect logout configurable in RSSO now, and then the self-help that we had enabled for admin UI is enabled out of the box, which was previously an optional thing. Right? So that was a quick overview of what changed for some of the platform component, AR, RSSO, and smart reporting. Peter, back to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And then I wanted to see, can you see the summary slide? Greg, does it broadcast? Or?
Yes, I see the summary slide, Peter.
Okay. Yeah, I think there were some hiccups in the slide progression. Again, apologies for some of the hiccups here. So let me summarize quickly again. Lots of exciting capabilities as part of this 20.08 release. You could see that we are shifting strategies around the ITSM UI, what we have with Smart IT, and I'm very excited about the positive feedback that we received around the progressive web approach that will give you an enormous amount of flexibility in tailoring and extending the UI to the degree that is very similar to what we can do in mid-tier, right? Which is really what a lot of our customers were looking for, right? While preserving the modern flow, and in some cases even optimizing some of the interactions. In general, our focus is on transitioning the Smart IT UI as quickly as possible to this new technology, and then of course once we have that single code line, we'll be able to then extend the corresponding ITSM UI capabilities very quickly, right? But as you could see, there's many other topics that we've delivered. Integration remains a very important topic, and with Helix integration platform, we now have a best-in-class integration solutions with an extremely large number of pre-built connectors out there, and super easy to use, as you could see. But as well, we continue to build out our platform capabilities, RSSO reporting, and you'll see that there's lots of new exciting things coming, also specifically on the platform side. More on that in our next session, right? When it comes to 20.08, just as usual, wanted to provide a few resources here, as with previous releases. The most detailed overview of all the enhancements. We could really touch only on the most important ones in this session here. The really comprehensive overview of all the detailed enhancements is provided through these doc pages. It's probably easiest if you start with the ITSM suite 20.08, and then you can jump into the specific subsections. Of course, again, there's also enhancements specifically listed for BMC Helix Multi-Cloud Service Management, for BMC Helix Digital Workplace. For a number of other products had releases at the same release cycle here. As always, I wanted to call out here our BMC support blog that delivers valuable insights on a monthly basis. So I definitely recommend that you look at these or subscribe to the corresponding pages. And then, as mentioned before, there's a rich set of information available specifically about this topic of flash replacement or flash deprecation, both with this previous Connect with BMC Helix ITSM webinar, as well as through the documentation space, and the links here are in the corresponding slides. Now, again, as usual, there's more information for self-help available to you around the entire solution, whether it's BMC Helix ITSM or Remedy ITSM. There's the community pages, there's the YouTube channel. Just a quick reminder again, there's a lot of information available from a self-help perspective, right? With that, I'd like to thank you for your time in attending this session. Again, apologies that we had some hiccups in between around the logistical side here, but hope you got some good insight of all the things that have been delivered as part of 20.08. And again, all of these things are certainly relevant also for the on-premise customers, as we plan to deliver them in the next on-premise release as well.